What's up, everybody? Happy week 6. We've got a heck of a barn burner on tonight with the Bears and Commanders out to a quick 0-0 ball game. Looks like we've got a couple people tuned in. I love it. I was out last week. We had a little bit of a busy week at work. Couldn't get fully cranking here onto the power hour, fully diving into the sheets, but we're back this week. We got the workload report going. We got the DraftKings projections, and we're gonna be firing here. So yeah, let's dive in. Let's get the screen going. We're gonna share the workload report. And we're just going to jump into it. We're going to go game by game like we do every week. And we're going to get this thing cranking. First of all, we'll start with a little shot, baby. Last week we're on Michelob's. This week we got the fresh Blue Mountains of the Coors Light. Actually, maybe before we jump into the games, should we take a little cruise through NFL all day playbook land? Have we seen anything that we care about yet in tonight's game? Let's see. We've got the challenges. We've got the Thursday. Let's see. Let's get the Thursday night going here. Oh, I'm not sharing. Technical errors. Let me get this shared. Pull up. All right, we're back, baby. What the hell just happened? That's kind of crazy that the stream still stays live. All right, and we gained a couple of viewers during that. That's great. That's great. I love it. I don't know what just happened. My whole computer went black, and but the stream stayed going. So you love to see it. All right, let's check out what we got going on here over on NFL All Day with the challenges. We got upcoming Thursday night challenge. Tonight's was a pretty easy one, right? So we just need one basic one moment from all the different teams here. A wide receiver moment from the team with the most yards gained in a single pass. So right now we have Washington with an 18-yarder as the long and Chicago with a 26-yarder as the long. So we're looking for Chicago wide receiver. Running backs, we're looking for Khalil Herbert with a long of 64. So that one's probably going to be tough to beat. So you're probably going to need a Bears running back. And then the team that records the most passing yards. Wentz has 40, Fields has 69, still pretty close there. So it's looking like two Bears and then historical from whichever team decides to score some points here. So see what happens. Not sure if we're going to get a lot of points, but hey, we're here for trying. We're definitely going to try it. All right. we've got double digit people. That means we can get locked in, loaded into the games for the week. Again, I'm gonna fire through all the games here. We're gonna go at a pretty fast pace, probably. I'll zoom in a little bit here. Get these showing up a little bit better. Um, and we'll go through the workload report, which now has some really good data uh, behind it. Right, we've got some trending stats from weeks 2 through 4, and then we've got what happened in weeks 5 as well. So we're getting deeper into the season here. We've got some more data to look at, and we can start making some real decisions here in our fantasy lineups, both on the daily side and the season long side. And then yeah, I mean, as you guys are watching, as you guys are going through, if you've got questions, if you want me to look at certain players in your fantasy lineups, if you care about somebody and want to know what's going on, just drop a comment in the chat, and we'll get firing. And then just because we buffered out and we had to refresh, we're gonna take another beer shot here as part of the power hour before we get going. So starting with the first game of the slate, and usually the worst game of the slate. We're going with the Carolina Panthers and the Rams. Total this week, I think, is at a 41.5. Let me get that pulled up here. Uh, yeah, so we got Carolina at the Rams. Rams are a 10-point favorite, and the total is only 41.5. So Panthers are expected to score about 15 points here. So Christian McCaffrey is having really good usage to start the season. You can see snap percentage is great, target percentage is great, over 60% of the rushing attempts. That's all consistent with what happened in Week 5. He Let's see, went for 7 catches, 50 yards, 54 rushing yards, and a touchdown. 23-point week for Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, it's going to be a pretty standard week for him, and I think everybody's been able to take a couple deep breaths that have him on their team. Meanwhile, DJ Moore, not so much. Him and Robbie Anderson are still pretty much the only receivers, getting a lot of play. Both of them pretty much on the field for every snap, but Moore is really the only one contributing a whole lot into the fantasy streets here. 4 catches for 59 yards. Still don't believe he's got. Oh yeah, it looks like he's got one touchdown in weeks 2 through 4. But we want to see a little bit more out of DJ Moore. I mean, this week they've got PJ Walker slinging the ball probably because Baker's going to be out. So that's not really going to be too great. So we're probably not going to be buying into the Panthers too much here. On the other side, we've got the Rams. So the Rams backfield, one of the more frustrating backfields in the NFL right now, especially if you're a fantasy manager. Um, we've got Henderson and Cam Akers. Cam Akers is pretty much getting most of the rushing, and then Henderson is getting most of the receiving. So we can see what these guys did in Week 5. I mean, literally, Henderson 0 rushing yards, Cam Akers 33, Cam Akers 0 receiving yards, Henderson 30. Neither of them scored a touchdown. Rams didn't have too great of a game against the Cowboys, and both of them scored below 10 fantasy points. So just not really what you want. I mean, I wouldn't really feel comfortable starting either of these guys in fantasy. And then on the receiving side, I mean, I don't know. It seems like Allen Robinson is just basically a drop right now. He's running wind sprints out there. He's on the field a ton. So has Ben Skowronek. 88% of the snaps for Skowronek and 99% of the snaps for Robinson, but only 6 targets and 3 targets accordingly for both of those guys. And just not getting a whole lot of production there. So Robinson with 3 catches for 12 yards, Skowronek 6 for 41. I mean, it does seem like Skowronek's got a little bit more juice than Robinson does, but I don't know. It's kind of thin for both of those guys. And then obviously Cooper Kupp. I mean, it's just a stud. Week in and week out, 7 catches for 125 yards and a touchdown this week. He's averaging almost 40% of the Rams' PPR points. He's just super, super efficient and consistent. And you just love to see that for a guy you probably took a reach on there in the first round. Tyler Higby, I think, is another fun name. He was a late round tight end that was going this year. That's really provided some stability in this Rams offense. Pretty much the ball is going to Kupp and Higby. You can see in weeks 2 through 4, Cup had a 40% target share, Higby a 27% target share. In weeks 5, it was the same thing, 40%, 29%. So that's feeling pretty sticky. I would be a pretty big Tyler Higby fan if you need to start, like, I'm sure you're starting him right now if you don't have one of the elite tight ends. But I mean, I think there's a league that I just set my lineup for today that I'm rolling Higby out in the flex this week, just because I don't have any great options because of a couple buys. But 7 catches for 46 yards. I mean, that's pretty money from a tight end, getting about 20% of the team's fantasy points there. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I think this game's going to be a little bit of a snooze. But maybe McCaffrey can put up some points. Definitely Cup. It's kind of funny. It's the worst game of the slate, but probably the two best fantasy players there. So let's see. We the People says Akers win favorite, Henderson win behind, but non-existent anyways. Yeah, I mean, like that's kind of the approach I was taking with the Chiefs when I was trying to figure out some DFS on Monday night. I was thinking, if I'm going to make a lineup where the Chiefs are coming from behind, I'm going to play Jerick McKinnon. If I'm playing a lineup where the Chiefs are blowing out the Raiders, then I'm going to play some Isaiah Pacheco as the guy who's going to get some run there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Rams just don't look great. They don't have a great offensive line. They've been getting pressured a lot. They are not really looking like the defending Super Bowl champ. So it's pretty tough to trust on either of those guys. Um, let's see here. So looking at this game on DraftKings, like I said, we have McCaffrey and Cup. McCaffrey's 8,300 this week. Um, and our guy Cup is 9,700. So Cup's seeing a little bit of a bounce there. But Cup's still projecting well, even at 9,700. McCaffrey's projecting really well at 8,300. Um, but yeah, I mean, other than that, it's just not going to be the greatest game. Like, I don't really think you're starting too many. Like, I don't even know if I feel comfortable starting DJ Moore with PJ Walker back there. Walker probably takes a little bit of the upside out of McCaffrey, right? With the rushing there, so I'd be a little bit worried about that. Higby again is just not getting priced up by DraftKings, so he's still projecting as a really good value as well this weekend. But I mean, outside of those guys, it's really looking like a game to avoid. So moving on here, um, going through the next game on the slate is, let's see, Jacksonville at Indiana. Indianapolis. Indianapolis is favored by 2 points, over under 42. So the big question is going to be, is Jonathan Taylor going to be able to play or not? We can see here in week 5. This doesn't seem right. I might have something screwed up here, but because Taylor definitely didn't get week 5. Oh, got week 4 in here still. What is going on? Thought I updated this. All right. Well, bear with me here, people. Let's get week 5 taken care of on the snap count. Oh, geez, we got week 4 everywhere. Huh. Well, good thing we didn't get too far there. Damn. Sorry, y'all. Let me just update the spreadsheets here a little bit. Gotta go into this. Damn, what's going on? For sure thought I made these changes, but I guess not. S Small little scheduling break here. Drop this down, and we are back. Okay, so going up to McCaffrey here, or sorry, going up to the Colts backfield here. So obviously Naheem Hines really got out of the game quickly there with that concussion. Didn't look great at all. And after that, it was kind of a split backfield between Deion Jackson, Philip Lindsay. Interesting to kind of see how this takes place this week. I would think they're going to continue to lean on Lindsay a little bit more. He like had just signed on the team, so if for some reason Taylor can't go and Hines can't go, I think I prefer Lindsay over Deion Jackson. Deion Jackson's kind of more of a special teamer. I forgot to take the shot too. I'm really out of sorts tonight, people. Here, let's get this figured out. And then I don't know, man. Colts just don't really look like they can pass the ball too much. Mo Ali Cox should definitely be on the field more, but instead they're running, three different tight ends out there for like 40% of the snaps. Michael Pittman's out there a bunch, but he's just not seeing a ton of volume from our guy Matt Ryan. Alec Pierce is kind of an interesting guy to look at. Nice little air yard share, nice little whopper. I mean, Pierce and Michael Pittman, I think, are the two people to target on this team if you're ever going to look for a Colts pass catcher. Pierce actually outscored Pittman last week due to getting the what do you have? 8 catches for 81 yards. Pittman only had 5 for 59. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if we think the Colts are going to get into a little bit of a back and forth here with Jacksonville. Maybe it's be interesting to target Pittman and Pierce, but I don't know. I mean, I would say if Taylor's out, right, and they're relying on either Deion Jackson or Philip Lindsay, then Pierce and Pittman probably get a little bit of a bump there. But if Taylor's back, I haven't really seen a lot from this offense. I can't. Doesn't seem like we can really trust Matt Ryan yet. Okay, Jacksonville backfield. So James Robinson was a pretty popular play last week. Let's see kind of how that broke in the game in week 5. So. ETN actually had more snaps than Robinson, 54% to 41%. ETN also had more targets, and they had the same amount of attempts. So that's not a great look for our guy James Robinson. ETN had more rushing yards, receiving yards, and receptions. So yeah, it's kind of the ETN show a little bit. Let's see how these guys are trending here. So everything's trending in ETN's direction as it relates to snaps and targets and attempts in week 4. So based on maybe what we're going to see here in a little bit from the DraftKings side, I think ETN is a little bit of a sneaky play this week against a Colts defense who's kind of up and down a little bit. May have a little bit of that Brees Hall potential that we saw pop off in week 5. Um, so yeah, let's see if we can find anything else trending in the right direction. Rushing shares up, receiving shares up. Yeah, that's all good stuff for ETN. So I think if you've been waiting to get a piece of ETN, if you've really been wanting to get it going there, I think this is a good week to maybe check that out. And then let's look at our Jones brothers here on the Jags. And I'm going to toss in Evan Ingram here because he was seemed pretty active in their game in week 5 here. So really between Kirk, Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, and Ingram, those are the 4 main guys that are running routes and getting targets on this team. Really quiet game for Christian Kirk, only 3 targets. He had been coming into the week with a 23% target share, trending as a 23% target share, and he only saw 3 targets. So Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, and Ingram all saw more targets than him. Wouldn't be really too concerned about that yet. That could have just been, the way the week shook out there. But I do love to see 116 air yards from Evan Ingram. And leading up to that in weeks 2 through 4, he only had 62, so he almost doubled that in week 5 alone. He did have a pretty good conversion rate on those coming into the week, and he actually didn't have a great conversion rate in week 5. So a little hard to tell if that's an outlier performance from an air yard standpoint for Ingram, and that's kind of why his yardage overall was down. But I mean, 6 catches for 69 yards is still pretty good when we're looking at kind of a streamer tight end kind of guy. I think Ingram is worth a stash on your roster if you're little needing a little help at tight end. Okay, so looking at this game from a DFS standpoint, right now the sites are projecting Jonathan Taylor in, and he's not projecting great at 8,000, but he'll be a decent value. The sites are also projecting Nyheim Hines in, so I think this is an important backfield to kind of see what's going on there and see, how that's going to kind of play out. Alec Pierce is actually projecting a little bit better at cost than Michael Pittman. Alec Pierce is only 4,300 this week, so expect him to be a little bit popular. And but I think Pittman at 69 just seems a little bit high, but I think if Taylor for some reason is ruled out, I think that this game could get interesting in the receiving core. So I wouldn't be totally off of Pittman or Pierce here, but a lot of that hinges on Taylor and Hines news. And then on the Jacksonville side, so ETN is projecting better from a pricing standpoint. Only 5,000 this week for ETN. So I think that's definitely going to be a guy that I'm going to try to play a little bit and try to get ahead of that Brees Hall bump like we saw in week 5. And then Let's see. Christian Kirk is projecting well again. His price didn't move too much after a down week. Zay Jones is projecting really well. His price hasn't moved much at all, and he's been getting a lot of targets. And then Evan Ingram at 3,500. I mean, he's not projecting very well, but 3,500 is a little bit outside of that perfect punt tight end range. But I don't know. I think he could be a fun little play this week for sure. All right, shot. All right, let's check in on the chat here before we get on to game number three. We the People says, oh, that was about the first game. We the People says JT should play. So yeah, I'm not sure. I know it's a high ankle sprain. I'm not too stoked to play running backs off a high ankle sprain. And yeah, there we go. Top Shot Lifer says he's not on the ETN hype. He says ETN was overhyped. That may be true. That may be true. Coming out of college, maybe he was overhyped a little bit. But anytime a guy is going to be able to get in the passing game a lot as a running back, I think we've got to pay attention to him from a fantasy standpoint. So I don't hate ETN too much. Okay, moving on to game three here. Man, we have just a bunch of great games this week here in week six. So we've got New England traveling to Cleveland. Cleveland's favored by 2.5 at home, and the over under is 53 here. Nick Chubb obviously had another big game against the Chargers last week. He was him and Kareem Hunt were both actually staples of the flow chart, and which didn't do too hot. We had Justin Herbert and the Chargers who did well, but we did not have Austin Eckler who scored all of their fantasy points. We can see here 134 rushing yards for Chubb, but absolutely no passing game involvement. Kareem Hunt, 47 rushing yards, 3 catches for 10 yards, and a touchdown there. So yeah, I mean, great outcomes there. Both, Kareem Hunt 14 points, Nick Chubb 25 points. That's pretty much what you want from those guys. Let's look at the receivers here. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is an interesting guy that I want to check out, and then Njoku as well. So Njoku had the big week in week three, I think that was. So let's kind of check in and see how he's doing, and then I want to check in on Donovan Peoples-Jones as well. So between Cooper, DPJ, and Njoku, they're playing. They're running the majority of the snaps and routes in this offense. All everybody else just has about one target. Looking through some of the results here from week five relative to how these guys were trending. So Amari Cooper was tracking a 42% air yard share, comes in at a 41% share this week. DPJ got a little bit of a bump there with a 31% air yard share, and then Njoku stayed pretty consistent. And then just looking at conversion rates here, right? So Njoku is running really hot. 1.81 conversion rate on those air yards is pretty high, but he still kept that consistent in week five with a 1.91. So he's getting a lot of yards after catch, is basically what that's saying. And he's catching a lot of passes that come his way, basically. His catch percentage was 100% this week on 6 targets. So that means, he's just gobbling everything up. So absolutely love Njoku in this offense. He's doing well. And then, yeah, Donovan Peoples-Jones, a little bit of a down week on the conversion rate side, a really big up week on the Whopper, the weighted opportunity rating. But yeah, it doesn't look too sticky there. So I'm not super sold on DPJ, even after, only a 9 point outing there. Cooper got saved a little bit by the touchdown, and put up the big 20 points. So yeah, there's our Browns. Ramondre on the Patriots. Ramondre, I think, is the main person we need to talk about here. No Ty Montgomery. Looks like Damian Harris is going to be out for a couple weeks. Ramondre is going to be chalk in DFS. He's going to be the most played guy in cash, probably in tournaments as well. It just looks like a great play. I don't think anybody else from the Patriots are really going to factor at all into the running game, and we already see Ramondre getting into the passing game as well. He came into the week averaging about 13% target share. Only saw 2 targets in week five, but still positive there, and 2 catches for 14 yards there, and 161 rushing yards after Harris went down. I mean, that's just a smash. I mean, they were playing the Lions defense, who's a really bad defense, but still, that's great stuff there from Ramondre. On the Patriots side, I mean, Receiving core is still a little bit of a mess. Devontae Parker just goes 31 routes, 0 targets this week. Nelson Aguilar only ran 7 routes. Kendrick Bourne only 34 routes and 1 target. Jacoby Myers and Hunter Henry were the two that saw the most targets and routes this week. And Myers, Myers is a pretty nice play. I mean, if let's try to see if we have anything trending for any of these guys. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just not looking great. Myers is dominating in the weighted opportunity rating, so that's something that stands out for sure. So I would, if you feel the need to play some Patriots, or if you're trying to figure that out, I would definitely pretty much stay only to Jacoby Myers. But that could be a fun little game environment to try to get a piece of. I'm not sure how many people are really going to stack this game in DFS. They're probably just going to go to Ramondre and then bail out. And so getting a hold of this game for a little bit of correlation, a little secondary stack could be kind of fun. Let's see how things are tracking here. So yeah, we've got a big projection on Ramondre, 6,000. Still not priced up high enough based on where he's projecting. He's got one of the bigger ceilings of any of the running backs this week. So that's saying a lot for a guy at only 6,000. And Jacoby Myers looks pretty good. And other than that, everybody else looks pretty bad. Hunter Henry at 3,100, I don't mind as a punt tight end. We just saw some good metrics there between him and Myers, kind of dominating the passing game work from Bailey Zapp. So yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at here. And then on the Cleveland side, again, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Chubb sees a little bit of a price bump this week. These guys are never going to project well, but if you're into it and if you believe in Cleveland running all over New England, which I don't necessarily think I do, then that could be interesting. But other than that, I mean, David Njoku is 4,000 and projecting decently. Everybody else is not looking too great here against what should be a pretty decent Patriots defense. But getting a piece of like Ramondre plus Njoku or Ramondre Myers and Njoku or something like that could be a fun way to attack this game and not spend a ton of salary where the field's going elsewhere. Here we go. Zakarian's in the house, pumping the skeets. Love it. We're moving on to game 4, and we're ripping a shot of the mountains are blue, baby. Top Shot Lifer says Peoples Jones is due for a big game. Yeah, Peoples Jones. There must be something about guys with long hyphenated last names because I feel like him and Marquez Valdez Scantling are kind of both in the same category there. They disappoint you for a lot of weeks. They don't really show up too well on your fantasy bench. You never really want to start them. And then a couple weeks a year, they go off for, 25, 30 points, and you just kind of get frustrated that they're not in your lineup. Okay, moving on to game number 4 of the week. We've got the Cincinnati Bengals at the New Orleans Hornets. Cincy is favored by 1 on the road, and over-under is only 43. So Joe Mixon is a guy that has been really polarizing in the fantasy streets. I want to go through, he's only accounting for 17% of his team's fantasy points. In week 5, he only scored 11.8 uh, PPR points, which isn't great, but the guy just keeps getting basically stuffed at the goal line a lot, and just kind of going through his usage a little bit. I mean, Samaje Perine is involved enough to kind of be annoying and to kind of eat into Mixon a little bit, but definitely nothing like a split backfield or anything like that. I mean, Mixon's got 70% of the snaps. Over 60% of the attempts, 14 rushing attempts out of the team's 17 here, or 18, I guess, which is looking pretty good. And also getting 3 targets. I mean, Piran's got 4 targets, so I mean that's a little bit of a bummer. They're in that a little bit of a come from behind effort here against the Ravens, or just a tight ball game. So probably expect to see a little bit more Pirine mixed in there. Looking at our receivers here, so Higgins had that weird showing where he kind of played for couple snaps, 10 snaps basically, and then didn't really play for the rest of the game. So when he was out, it was the Mike Thomas show. Mike Thomas came in and ran 71% or was on the field for 71% of the snaps. And then, of course, Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd. So keep an eye on Higgins, but I'm thinking he should be back this week. I haven't really seen anything saying differently. And then Hayden Hurst continues to get a lot of targets here for the Bengals. 7 targets this week, which is pretty good. Looking through some of the peripherals here for these guys. So let's look at Jamar Chase, right? So we know, I mean, if Top Shot Lifer's thinking Donovan Peoples-Jones is ready for a big game, I mean, come on, can we talk about Jamar Chase here, right? So you look at some of these numbers, right? 36% air yard share for these guys, and just a really bad conversion rate for Chase, which I think was a little bit of the concern with him coming in because we know he had a really efficient rookie season. We know he caught a lot of long touchdowns, scored a lot of fantasy points that way. And there was a lot of people that were thinking that that was going to fall off a little bit. And so, for the beginning of 2022 here, it has definitely fallen off. He's only converting, at a 56% rate there on those air yards. In week 5 here, he didn't see it tonight. The Bengals really didn't air it out too much. Only 50 air yards, and he did turn that into 7 catches and 50 yards. So, but I mean that's just a subpar game for Jamar Chase for sure. So I don't think we can look at this conversion rate number of 1 and be like, oh, that's a big positive. Um, but I also would think that he's got better than a 56% in his range. And then you can see when Higgins is out, I mean Chase just gobbles up the opportunity here. In weeks 2 through 4, they both had a weighted opportunity rate in the 60s there. And then when Higgins out, Chase has jumped up to 80% or an 80 share this week. So that's something to keep in mind if he is ruled out. And then, I mean, all this stuff's looking really good for Hayden Hurst. Air yard share is only 6%, but that's not really anything to be too concerned about from a tight end standpoint. 9 targets in weeks 2 through 4, and then he gets 6 in week 5. So that's great. Probably has a little bit to do with Higgins being out as well. But yeah, really good stuff there from Hurst. And then obviously he gets the touchdown too, which helps his fantasy score. Puts up a big 17.3 on Sunday night. That was right. So yeah. Moving on to the Saints here. So we finally had a pretty big Alvin Kamara week, and he didn't even score a touchdown. 6 catches for 91 yards and 103 yards rushing. Almost got the double bonus there on DraftKings, and then of course got just snaked by Taysom Hill's 3 touchdowns and didn't get any of those. But it really could have been a much bigger week for Kamara if he had gotten really any of those Taysom Hill touchdown. So I guess that's just kind of the concern here with Kamara with Taysom Hill in the mix there. And then with Landry out and Michael Thomas out, obviously Chris Olave was projecting pretty well, and then Marquez Callaway was a pretty good play as well this week. But um, I mean, Marquez Callaway just continues to kind of disappoint when he's supposed to do better. He's never really been a big guy that's put out some big scores, and then Olave had that scary looking concussion. So I think it's still TBD on all 3 of these guys: Olave, Landry, and Michael Thomas this week. I'm pretty sure I saw that they were all out of practice today. So yeah, that's concerning for sure if you're looking into this game. Chris Olave just an absurd 635 air yards weeks 2 through 4. Almost doesn't really look real there. Still had a 36% air yard share and only played. How many snaps did he have here? I don't think he was in for the full game. Yeah, only played 41% of the snaps. So he was didn't I don't know if he made it to the second half. I forget exactly when he got concussed. Did catch a touchdown here in week 5. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Saints are just pretty gross when they don't have all of their weapons. It's kind of the Kamara show, and then it was the Olave show, and then after he left, I mean, it was just all Kamara and then Taysom Hill. So probably gonna get some questions about Taysom Hill. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't ever recommend starting him. Like it's just he could easily put up a 0 just as easily as he could put up 32 points or whatever he did there on Sunday in week 5. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of fun to stash if you're running out of options on a deep bye week or something and you need to toss in Taysom Hill. It could be a good play, but I mean, I wouldn't be prioritizing him for anything like that. Looking at this game on DraftKings, the Bengals are actually all projecting really well, and looking to have modest ownership here. So I could see Mixon, Chase, Higgins. Higgins is projecting in right now. Mixon, Chase, Higgins, Hurst, and Burrow are all looking pretty good. And in my projections for ceiling, they're all looking like they have pretty good ceiling chances as well. Of course, Kamara is still only 6,700. I don't know how that happens. I mean, if we get news that a bunch of these receivers are out, I think you just got to load up on Kamara. I'm not sure why his price didn't move up too much. He's already projecting really well with Thomas and Landry considered in. If those guys, aren't in, and yeah, it's gonna be another one of the Alvin Kamara show. So I think he would become pretty strong chalk and be pretty good chalk as well on the slate here. I think that breaks it down here. The consigliere wants me to call back to the Patriots and order the receivers. Like, dude, I don't know. I think Myers is all that matters for number one, and then like maybe Parker, just because we've seen what he's been able to do, and then like you can have your choice of Aguilar and Bourne. I wouldn't be touching him. So I think it's just Jacoby. That's all we care about. Top Shot Lifer says if Winston isn't playing, let's see what the projections are saying. They're not projecting Winston in right now. They're projecting Andy Dalton in for the start this week. But yeah, so that's positive for Kamara, right? I think is what your point is, and I agree there. If Winston's back, but even if Winston's back, I mean, he's not going to be slinging the ball to Callaway. We already went through that experiment, so I think Kamara would still be a pretty good play there. All right, on to game 5. Let's take a shot here. Okay, game 5. We've got oh man, this is a this is a tough game as well. These are just not great games this week. We've got San Francisco 49ers going to Atlanta. San Fran is favored by 5, and the over under is 44 and a half here. Sorry there, had to get cough out. So diving into the sheets here, Cordero Patterson was out in week 5. And hmm, seeing some weird stats here for Tyler Algier. I don't know why it says. Oh yeah, he didn't have any receiving yards. That makes sense. Okay, sorry. So Tyler Algier, 60% of the snaps. Caleb Huntley and Avery Williams all got snaps too. I mean, that's pretty gross. 40% share for Algier, Caleb Huntley, Avery Williams. Yeah, I mean, not really a backfield you want to attack there. It doesn't really look like anybody's was able to really step away in this game. I mean, I guess Algier got more of the snaps and I guess more of the rushing yards, but then Avery Williams got the touchdown. Yeah, that's just a gross one. And they still have got Cordell Patterson and Damian Williams. I mean, yeah, it's just not gonna be a very fun backfield to try to figure out. I just completely stay away from them. Drake London, obviously we had Kyle Pitts out, so a lot of people were touting Drake London as really the only NFL caliber player on the team this week. He didn't really have a great game either. Between him and Olamide Zaccheaus, they were kind of the guys on the field the most, commanding most of the target share. Kadero Hodge mixed in a little bit with 5 targets. But yeah, I mean, Drake London, great start to the season. 246 yards for a 32% share and a .83 Whopper. But then that kind of fizzled out in week 5. Only 58 air yards. Only turned those into 4 catches for 35 yards, and his Whopper actually went down in a game where they had less weapons, which is a little bit concerning. But also just kind of maybe had more so to do with them playing the Bucks and kind of getting the brakes blown off of him there. So I think that's about it. No real news to look at with Pitts as he was out. On the Niners, it was the Jeff Wilson show. Juszczyk is in there as a fullback, and then Tevin Coleman was in there as well. who I don't think a whole lot of people were expecting. But Wilson did well, ran 17 times, only had 58% of snaps, so it wasn't a complete workhorse. Tevin Coleman got in there actually quite a bit and was super efficient. So he was in his involvement rate is really high, 58% involvement rate. So when he was on the field, he was getting utilized by the team 58% of the time, which is a pretty big number there. Um, Looking at the rushing outcome here for these guys, 120 yards for Wilson, only 23 yards for Coleman on the ground, but then three catches for 44 yards for Coleman, and then he had the two touchdowns as well. So, two big games for both of those guys. A touchdown easily could have gone Jeff Wilson's way, and that score looks a little bit better. So yeah, I think you're definitely playing Jeff Wilson with pretty good certainty, and I mean, obviously Coleman's worth a pickup here on the waiver wire, especially if we know the Niners are going to always want to run the ball. A lot of people were looking at, Debo this week with the running game kind of being a little bit more banged up, and let's see if he was able to kind of capitalize. There are only two rushing attempts for Debo, 9 targets compared to 4 for Brandon Ayuk, and 6 for George Kittle, and that was about it. I think Jawan Jennings got a couple passes earlier, and then was pretty much non-existent, only 15 snaps there. So pretty much Samuel, Ayuk, and Kittle getting all the snaps there. And then let's dive into the receiving share here and see if we've got anything worth mentioning. Big air yard share for Brandon Ayuk in weeks 2 through 4, and that kind of fell down a little bit there in week 5. Debo, pretty pretty bad conversion rate. I think he just kind of ran a little bit cold in week 5. So be looking for a little bit of a Debo bounce back game. Still scored the touchdown, which is good for his fantasy people. And then George Kittle here, just kind of meh. 5 catches, 47 yards. All of his stuff is kind of trending really where it's been for the first couple weeks. So I'm not really pounding the table for Kittle. I'm not really thinking that he belongs in that elite tight end bucket that some of the other guys do. I'd like to see a little bit more production out of him before we get too crazy there. Jumping over to the DraftKings side of things here. Let's see if anybody in the world is projecting well on Atlanta. So right now they are projecting Drake London back in. Oh, sorry, he's not injured. I don't know why I thought he was. So Drake London is projecting well. Cal Pitts is projecting back in. That's what I meant to say. Um, and he's projecting pretty well, 4,200. And then Mariota's decent at 53. They can't figure out uh, that right now we've got 4 running backs projected to get points for the Falcons. So that seems pretty gross. On the San Francisco side, so Jeff Wilson has creeped up a little bit to 6,200, and then with the Tevin Coleman, game, we're seeing just enough points go to Coleman's route to not really make Wilson a screaming value. But like I said, I mean, still a lot of rushing yards for Wilson, and a touchdown goes his way instead of Coleman's. He has a really big game last week, and probably a lot more people are talking about him. Samuel at 7,600, projecting all right. Ayuk 5,400. That's about where he was last week, and he's still projecting all right as well. And then Kittle, I think, is still a little bit too expensive at 5,100. So generally, not a great game that I'm really thinking about attacking here. Although, I mean, if you think the Falcons could score points, they're going to have a pretty concentrated offense between London and Pitts there. So one of these weeks it should pay off. But yeah, not a whole lot of not a whole lot of enticing spots yet that we've seen. I think Cincy New Orleans is probably my favorite one so far. All right, we'll move on to Game 6 and cross over the halfway mark. Let's see. Let's check in where we're at halftime of our Thursday night football blow up game. So Carson Wentz has a big 57 passing yards at halftime, and they're up 3-0. And then Justin Fields coming back with 89 passing yards. I think Josh Allen had more passing yards combined than those guys did in the first quarter last week. Real snoozer here. I'll just say that's the reason why not that many people are tuning in tonight, right? Because nobody's watching the Thursday night game. Here we go. Let's see. Let's go through some questions here. We the People says Debo and Wilson and move on for me, if anything, this weekend. Yeah, I think I agree with that. I could see some angles where you could get into Drake Leonard and Pitts. Top Shot Life versus how do you feel about Algier going forward? I mean, I would feel better if he was able to kind of cement himself a little bit more in week 5, but it didn't really happen. And yeah, I'm not sure what's if I feel too comfortable there. I probably still want to see it out of Algier before I really go to the bank. Like on ETN, right? Like we were talking about him earlier. I think I'm seeing a little bit more of the underlying metrics where I'm willing to make that bet before we see it from him. I'm not really willing to do the same here for Algier. We the people says Coleman's going back to the practice squad. Okay, that's interesting. He's still getting projection here, so um, well, that'll be interesting to watch. If Coleman does go back and he's not active this week, then obviously Wilson looks a lot better. And then yeah, Cordarrelle is on the IR, so he's out for a minimum of 4 weeks. So yeah, he's not coming back until week 9. Okay, moving on to game number 6 here. We got my Packers trying to now beat another New York team who they should beat, but probably will be in a close game in the fourth quarter. They are at home against the Jets. 7-point home favorites. 45 is the total. Going through the Packers here. So let's look at their running backs. Couple quiet weeks here from Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. Only 3 targets combined in week 5 after both of them were kind of getting some more targets than that in weeks 2 through 4. And then Aaron Jones, a lot more of the rushing attempts in week 5 as well. 13 rushing attempts to AJ Dillon's 6 only. So you can see the involvement and the usage rating here is are kind of key to look at. And you can see in weeks 2 through 4, the deltas here are pretty negative for both those guys, especially for AJ Dillon. So a little bit concerning there. I'm not too sure exactly what to make of it there. I mean, I'm inclined to think that these guys can both bounce back, but that's the problem with this split backfield kind of running back by committee thing. When they're hot and everything's going through the running backs, they both have the ability to eat, but when it's not and it's going through the receiving core, then they're just going to kind of bite into each other and really limit the upside. So let's see what their share was. Yeah, I mean AJ Dillon 3.4 points and Aaron Jones 10 points. So that's not great. You can see the deltas here for their PPR share are down across the board. On the flip side here on the wide receiver core, let's take a look at our guy Alan Lazard and Romeo Dobbs. Those are the two that I want to look at. Christian Watson only had 1 target in week 5, so that's a little bit of a bummer. Um, and Randall Cobb actually went off for 13 targets, definitely his biggest target share of the year. But I think I feel like that's a little bit of an outlier. I think Dubs and Lazard are kind of the guys that we want to be looking at here. So, um, I mean, Cobby did see 122 air yards. So that's a really big share and a .79 Whopper. So I mean, that's pretty good stuff from Cobb. Obviously, Rogers trusts him from all their years together. But I don't know. I don't know if I believe in Cobb really there. But I mean, good for him. He's playing well. 7 catches for 99 yards last week. Dubs air yard share a little bit up. Um, Conversion rate way down. And then his weighted opportunity rate down as well. So you'd like to think the conversion rate is a little bit stickier from weeks 2 through 4, so he'd probably be able to bounce back here. And then same kind of thing with Alan Lazard. Similar weighted opportunity rating as he'd been trending, but then his conversion rate just went really down against the Giants there. Still had 95 air yards, which is it's a pretty good number for Lazard. So I think he's got a little bit of a bounce back potential, and he still managed to salvage the week with a touchdown there. So yeah, I think going back to the well on Lazard and Dubs is interesting, and then definitely down for Cobb too if his price is right on DraftKings. The Jets here. So I think this Packers Jets game is going to be an interesting one to try to attack. We'll see how the pricing shakes out, but so far this is the first one that's kind of getting me going a little bit here. We're just thinking about the game script. So we talked about this last week. We talked about Brees Hall kind of take it, or sorry, not last week, 2 weeks ago. It was a very similar spot that ETN was in. Brees Hall was starting to trend in the right direction, and then bang, just like that, week 5 comes out 69% of the snaps compared to 42 for Carter. Gets 55 of the rushing attempts, and only had 2 targets. Is that right? I guess he just had that really long catch, which is adding to his his receiving yard total, but. Yeah, he had that like 70-yard catch. So I guess he did only have two targets. But yeah, I mean, 97 rushing yards, 100 receiving yards on only two catches, and then the touchdown for Brees Hall. Carter still did sneak in two touchdowns there at the goal line. So again, could have even been a bigger day for Brees Hall if they don't go to Carter there. But it seems like that's kind of the risk. They probably are going to keep going to Carter at the goal line. So yeah, I mean, can't really say that Brees Hall is completely taken over this backfield, but I mean, you got to be encouraged by his passing game role. But again, another thing to just keep in mind, 8 of his 27 points came on that one big long receiving play. But again, I'll keep going back and forth on this guy, on my points on this guy. That's his upside, right? He's got the upside of the 70 yarders there. So I like Brees. And then the receivers here. So Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis. Been a tough kind of group to figure out this year. Really, nobody's separated themselves. And I mean, look at this. We see in week 5, 4 targets for each of them. All of them playing in that 60 to 70% of the snaps. Just nothing really great here. I mean, they they definitely saw a lot more air yards with Flacco, as we could see weeks 2 through 4. All these guys were almost at 300 air yards, and then last week, I mean, shoot, what are we looking at? Like 150 air yards combined here between the three of them, 130. So that's not great. That's not great if you're if you're rostering these Jets guys. Elijah Moore, just a really bad conversion rate on his air yards this week, but he doesn't have a great track record. He's only at a 43% conversion rate on the season. So that's not too good. Garrett Wilson actually ran pretty hot, but that's a little bit skewed because he only got 20 air yards, so that conversion rate doesn't mean a whole lot. But yeah, I mean, not a whole lot to take away from here from the Jets receivers. It's kind of ugly, and I would probably just play the pricing and ownership game on DraftKings. So let's take a look at this game. AJ Dillon actually projecting a little bit better than Aaron Jones with Price Incorporated. Dubs projecting a little bit better than Alan Lazard when you factor in Price. Randall Cobb's up to 4,400. So that seems a little bit steep. I wouldn't be super stoked to be chasing those targets that he got last week. And then Rogers actually looks decent at 6,100. So if you think they can run it up a little bit on the Jets, then that could be an interesting play. Brees Hall looks great at 5,800. His price didn't budge too much. Michael Carter at 5,000 isn't looking too great. And then receivers, all in this, I mean, they're just basically the same guy. 5,000, 4,800, 4,900 for those guys. So not a whole lot of separating from the pack there. Okay. We are, let's take some questions. We got some people in here. I love it. Let's see. Consigliere says first time I've liked a GB game all year. I have to agree with you. I watched them all. I myself haven't even liked watching the Green Bay games. Sam Camacho says Terry McLaurin has a carry before Antonio Gibson. So this is the end, right? Is this the end for Gibson? Is he done? He's out. It's looking like that's what's happening here. Is it the Brian Robinson show? Yeah, it does. Nine rushes for Robinson, two for McKissick. Antonio Gibson at least has a target, but looks like he is done so. Score is 3-0. So yeah, real barn burner here. And we're on to game number 7. Pittsburgh. Oh no, sorry. Let me make sure I'm getting everything right. I always just assume the first team I got is away, but they're not. Tampa Bay at Pittsburgh, where Tampa Bay goes on the road and is a 9-point favorite. It's pretty wild into Pittsburgh. I'm sure Pittsburgh has not been that big of a home dog in a while. 45 is the over under. Let's see what we're looking at here. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. So Harris is on the decline, people. He is not trending where we like to see. 74% of the rushing share in weeks 2 through 4, dropped down to 65% in weeks 5. Only 11 attempts there with Kenny Pickett behind the wheel. And still got 4 targets, which is nice to see for Najee. But when Jalen Warren's getting 5 targets, 5 attempts, and they're not just running the ball a lot, I mean, there was times last year, there was a stretch of games last year where Najee Harris had 100% snap share for multiple games in a row. Seeing that drop below 50% is pretty wild. So that's a little bit of a bummer to see for Najee. People are not going to love that if you're a Najee owner. Let's look at the people that matter on Pittsburgh here. So the three stud receivers: Johnson, Claypool, Pickens, and then Pat Fryermuth. Pat Fryermuth only 49% of snaps because I think he got concussed in this game. So interesting to see how he's doing. Zach Gentry came in and actually had a pretty decent game there with 6 targets. So what could have been for Fryermuth for sure. But Deontay Johnson, 13 targets, 9 for Claypool, 8 for Pickens. Let's see if we can pull anything out from what these receivers are doing. So coming into the week with mostly Mitch Trubisky, these guys that actually had pretty decent air yard outputs there. Pickens and Deontay kind of leading the crowd there, and then Chase Claypool playing that big slot role. But none of them have just been converting very well at all, right? So that's probably due more to Mitchell Trubisky than it is due to the receivers. But you can see these guys' conversion rate here is all in the red here, below 50%. And so what do we see with Kenny Pickett? We see George Pickens' conversion rate goes up. We see Claypool's conversion rate goes up. And we don't see the same from Deontay Johnson. So I'm not really willing. I'm not saying I don't think we can pull much from that, like specific to the players. But I do think that's a positive for the Steelers pass catchers overall. That probably just means Pickett's a little bit more of an accurate pass thrower, and these guys are probably going to have a better chance of scoring fantasy points with Pickett back there than they were with Trubisky. So wouldn't read too much into Deontay Johnson with a 30 with his conversion rate going down. He is usually a little bit higher up there, and you can see his weighted opportunity rating was still pretty high, 155 air yards there. So, yeah, I mean, I don't hate the Pittsburgh receivers here this week, even though the Tampa Bay passing course pretty good. Leonard Fournette finally had the blow up Leonard Fournette week. I think I've been talking about every show that I've gone on here that all the metrics were looking good. Don't give up on Lenny. And then what does he do? He actually has a down game from a metric standpoint, but blows up in the box score. So only 63% of the snaps, but does see a big 11 targets, which, in this game only made up 22% of the target share. And in weeks 2 through 4, he was averaging a 17% target share. So that 11 targets is like not that crazy. It seems like a big number for a running back, but based on where he was trending, that's not that crazy. And now that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pass volume is going up, the receivers are back, they're passing it more. Fournette is just going to be involved a ton of this offense. So I think Fournette is a buy right now. Do you see somebody that's trying to sell high on him after one big week? I think Fournette's here to stay. I think he's going to have a really good season. So that's really great to see. I love seeing Lenny do well. And then on the receiving side, I mean, it was basically the big three: Mike Evans, Godwin, and Russell Gage. And they got to go all the way down here to find our guy Cade Otton, 95% of the snap share and 7 targets with Cam Brate out. So Cade Otton was a great streamer last week on DraftKings. Probably is going to look pretty similar this week. And if you're desperate in your home fantasy leagues, I think he might be worth taking a peek out on the waiver wire. If we look at the outputs this week from the Bucks receivers, they just didn't score touchdowns. They all went to Fournette. Fournette had 2 touchdowns, and none of the receivers scored any touchdowns. But we see 105 air yards for Mike Evans. That looks great. Only 37 for Godwin there. So thought he was going to be a little bit more involved. Still caught 6 passes for 61 yards, but was hoping to see him get a little bit more of a look downfield. And then, yeah, like I said, I mean, K Dot 6 catches, 43 yards, which is perfect. 10 points for a streaming tight end. That's what you want to see. So let's see how this game actually looks pretty fun to me as well. Um, I'm not sure I'm fully on the Kenny Pickett bandwagon yet, especially against the Bucks defense is generally pretty good, but Pickett's looking decent there at 5,200. Zach Gentry we have projecting in instead of Pat Fryermuth. So Gentry at basically the minimum 2,600. He's going to project well, and like I said, he had 6 targets last week, so that's good. And then all the all the Pittsburgh receivers are projecting pretty good there. 4,600 for Pickens, 4,500 for Claypool, 5,700 for Deontay Johnson. You got to think a big Claypool week is coming. All the hype has been around Pickens, but you got to think Claypool's due for one here soon. Leonard Fournette is looking good. 7,400 is he's priced up about I think that's like 800 or so from where he was last week. So he got the big price bump, but he's looking good. Like I said, that target, the 11 targets, not being too far off from where he was trending this year is a big positive sign. And then Chris Godwin didn't see too much of a price hike after having a somewhat of a down or a mediocre game, and so he's still looking really good at 6,100. Gage and Evans project well. Kate Otten not so much now that he's bumped up to 2,900. I wonder why. Yeah, he just looks like he still has a good ceiling, but just not a great floor there. And then Brady at 6,300. I don't know what they're doing with this Brady price, but that's a pretty good quarterback price there. I think he's going to be again in the running for cash there. Okay, we're getting close here. We've got I think four more games this week on the slate, so let's cheers and get this thing going. Yeah. All right, let's check in on the chat here. Top Shot Lifer says Najee and Claypool have both been disappointing. Yeah, for sure. Najee definitely. I would be trying to get rid of Najee, sell him if you have him, or really just get off of him. But in Claypool as well. I mean, I think Pickens is a little bit of the real deal. And he's kind of a stud. So I would be a little bit scared to be a Claypool guy, but I think Claypool's going to have a couple big games, so I wouldn't really give up on him. But it is tough to figure out where to start him. And then the Consigliere says he's playing Scary Terry at captain. Jeez, man, you put a DFS lineup in for this game? How can you do that? I looked at it a couple times. I just couldn't get myself there to put in real life dollars on this game. Okay, we're on to game number 8 here, and we have let's see, Baltimore traveling to New York Giants. The New York Giants are at home, 4-1, and they are a 5.5 point dog. So that tells you what Vegas thinks about the 4-1 record there. Over under is 45.5. J.K. Dobbins continues to come back from injury here. 47% of the snap share in weeks 2 through 4. I guess that would only be weeks 4, I think, that he was involved in. And then only saw 40% in week 5. Kenyon Drake saw the rest, 42% basically. Not a whole lot of rushing out of the Ravens on Sunday night there. And then with Bateman out, it was really the Mark Andrews show, 10 targets to Andrews and then 7 to Devin Duvernay. So that's a good sign if you are Devin Duvernay. You got him on your bench or something like that. I mean, if there's going to be some games where Bateman misses or even Andrews misses, and we know that Duvernay is going to be the next, the third option that now becomes the second or maybe even the first in some games, I think that's worthy of stashing him and not completely dropping him. Say if anything from him jumped off the table here, 111 air yards. That's more than he had all of weeks 2 through 4. So I think that's probably why his conversion rate went down compared to where it had been. But a big weighted opportunity rating boost with Bateman out, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. And then Mark Andrews just kept crushing, 64 air yards, turned that into 8 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. Super super consistent at a position that is just hard to get consistency out of. Moving down to the Giants. I mean, man, these Giants are brutal to watch. I know I woke up early in the morning before the London game, watched them play my Packers, and I mean, outside of Saquon Barkley and apparently Darius Slayton, who I thought was kind of left for dead here and then came back big in week 5, there wasn't really a whole lot going on. I don't think it's really worth talking about any of these guys besides Barkley. 13 rushing attempts, 6 targets. Just is really their whole offense. Had was tracking as 38% of their PPR points in weeks 2 through 4. Had 20 points and 29% there in week 5. So I mean everything's going through Barkley. He's on the field a ton. And yeah, I think that's really it from the Giants. I don't really feel like Trying to figure out what's going on with Marcus Johnson versus David Sills versus Slayton versus Richie James. Like, let's just bail. Okay. Projection wise for this game, Duvernay is looking good at 4,700. That's assuming that our guy Bateman is out again. And then Andrews is priced up to 7,000 this week, but still projecting incredibly well at the tight end position. That scares me a little bit, but I mean, who the heck else are these guys going to go to? Who the heck else is Lamar going to go to? Lamar's up to 8,100 too, so price keeps climbing for Lamar and Andrews there. And then Barkley's up to 7,700. He's looking good. He's looking like he's going to be pretty popular, about 20% of the ownership there. And then everybody else looks disgusting except for Daniel Jones. Then Daniel Jones projects well, but who the heck are you going to play Daniel Jones with? That's pretty much a crapshoot. Okay, looks like we get a Pettis call here. Did we get a touchdown in this game? The Bears. The Bears. Dante Pettis, 40-yard touchdown, uh, 74 yards receiving the touchdown. There you go. We got life. We got some points. See if Carson Wentz can start. Okay, a couple more games left here. That one's just gross. I don't know if you can play Baltimore and the Giants, maybe just the Baltimore side, but gonna have to really do some soul searching if you're gonna try to figure out who to bring back on the Giants side there. Okay, this one's a pretty fun one. Miami and Minnesota. Let's see what the scoop is here. We've got Minnesota on the road at Miami. Minnie's actually favored by 3 points, which is a little bit interesting. That might be due to probably Teddy Bridgewater not tracking as playing. Let's see. What do the projections think? Yeah, projections are thinking Skylar Thompson is going to get the start. So that's a little bit bummer there for Tyreek Hill and Waddle. But let's see how these guys did with Skylar Thompson in week 2. Quickly on the running backs here, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's completely Raheem Mostert's show. Uh, 1 rushing attempt and 2 targets for Chase Edmonds. Probably can just consider him a drop. He doesn't seem to be a really big part of the offense here. Um, Tyreek Hill and Waddle on the field quite a bit there. 7 targets for Hill, only 3 for Waddle. So that's a bummer. These guys were both in the 30% target shares in weeks 2 through 4, and then really dropped down there in week 5. Have to assume that's kind of due to some of the Skylar Thompson effect. Both of these guys were over 300 air yards in weeks 2 through 4, and then just like 50 air yards combined from these guys in weeks 5. So again, that's Skylar Thompson effect. Take it into account. And then yeah, just kind of gross scores from these guys. So not really convinced our guy Skylar is a starting quarterback caliber player. And that's looking like a bummer for Tyreek and Waddle. If anything, I'm probably this game on the surface seems like a good one, man. Minnesota at Miami, but not if Skylar Thompson is really going to be weighing everybody down. Okay, on the Minnesota side, we got Dalvin Cook had a big game, 60% of the rushing share, but only 60% of the snaps. So still kind of dealing with that shoulder thing. I think that's why they're trotting Alexander Madison out there quite a bit. But 2 catches for 27 yards, 94 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns for Cook is a really great game, really great outcome. He was a fun little play in DFS last week, a little bit of a contrarian pick, and he did well there. On the receiving side, I mean, nothing really changes in this offense, which is why we like it so much. Adam Thielen, 97%, Justin Jefferson, 100%, KJ Osborne, 83% of the snaps. That's all in line with how they've been trending here. And then Irv Smith and Johnny Munt, whatever, are kind of in there at tight end, but mostly Irv Smith's getting the targets. Justin Jefferson had a big week, 13 targets, 33% target share. Let's see if we can see any numbers jumping out at us from Thielen or Osborne, or Jefferson even. So pretty big air yard share from these guys weeks 2 through 4. All Jefferson and Thielen near 30, KJ Osborne near 20. In week 5, neither of them broke 100. Justin Jefferson had 92 air yards for a 51% share, and obviously had some running after the catch there as he finished with 154 yards on 12 catches. No touchdowns there for J. Jeff, only one on the season, I think. Actually, I think he scored in week 1, so that's probably not picking it up. But does score 30 PPR points, which is pretty impressive when You don't even score a touchdown. So good stuff there from J Jeff. Not a whole lot that I'm seeing here from Thielen or Osborne. Both of their air yards numbers were rather low, so you can't really look too much into some of the um, conversion metrics there. As far as weighted opportunity rating goes, so there were some complaints about Jefferson needing to be involved in the offense a little bit more, finding ways to get him more engaged. And we see his weighted opportunity rating go up to a 0.86 in week 5, which is that elite tier that we expect Jefferson to be at. So it's good to see some growth there. He was only averaging a zero point 0.6 in weeks 2 through 4. So good stuff if you are a Jefferson manager or looking to play him in DFS or anything like that. I think it's wheels up for J Jeff. They're finding some more ways to get him involved creatively. Okay, on the oh man, I'm looking at the whole Miami team here, and it is just a sea of red and orange on my sheets, which just does not mean they project well at all. They're definitely accounting for Skylar Thompson here, as none of the receivers are looking at good values. Raheem Mostert, 5,700 seems decent, but yeah, it's a bummer. This with a healthy Tua and a full receiving core, this is probably a really fun game. But on a third string quarterback, it just doesn't have the same pizzazz. Dalvin Cook, 7,500, projects all right, nothing great. Justin Jefferson's still up there at 8,900, so he's actually projecting pretty good. So I don't hate him. I'd probably be trying to find ways to get him involved. And then Irv Smith projects really well at 3,200 also. And Cousins at 6K. I mean, Cousins. So playing the Minnesota side and then maybe just hope that one of these pass catchers goes off on Miami, or you just play Mostert, I guess, and maybe think like Miami gets out to a lead with a couple Mostert touchdowns, and then Minnesota's got to play catch up. I don't know. I don't ever hate Kirk Cousins doubles just because his production is so condensed, and that's really what we want to see um, in the um, in the fantasy world here. So okay, now we're on to a couple of fun games. We got two big ones left. These are the only really two big over unders of the week. So we got Arizona at Seattle, where Arizona's favored by 2.5, over under 50.5. So James Conner is likely, I think, going to be out, and Connor went down, Benjamin, and I think Daryl Williams is out too. Maybe somebody in the chat can help me there on the Daryl Williams, but I think he's out as well. So it's probably going to be the Benjamin show. Maybe Connor if he comes back healthy, but yeah, Benjamin 53% of snaps in week 5, 8 rushing attempts after Connor kind of left the game questionable. 3 catches for 28 yards and a touchdown for So that's good stuff. I think he is definitely the guy that they want to go to when Connor's out. So look for him to probably have a big week here. Okay, Arizona pass catchers. I really want to look at Marquise Brown here and just see if some of the big scores that he's been putting together are real, or if there's some smoke and mirrors there. So weeks 2 through 4, 319 air yards for a 41% air yard share, a conversion rate of 0.93, which is really good on that many air yards, a weighted opportunity rating of 0.73, and only one touchdown. That's great. Those are really great metrics. And wow, yeah, I mean that's really good stuff. Let's see what his catch percentage. Yeah, 37%, 26 receptions. I mean, ADOT's 8.2. I mean, that's just all really, really good stuff there for Hollywood Brown. In week 5, he got 98 air yards, 33% share. Weighted opportunity rating 0.63, which is great. Conversion rate came down a little bit, but point 0.8 is nothing to be too ashamed of. 8 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, I mean, Marquise Brown stuff was looking really good. I would definitely keep riding the wave here with Marquise Brown. He's looking like a stud here for Arizona. So really good stuff there for sure. Zach Ertz, 10 targets in week 5. What did he end up doing with those? 6 catches for 48 yards. It's pretty good. 98 air yards, pretty much almost eclipsed what he had in weeks 2 through 4 combined. So, could definitely see some doubles here in this game, some Kyler doubles. Let's see what Seattle's looking like. We've got the Kenneth Walker game, right? So Rashad Penny's out for the year. You got to think that he may be having to pack it up for a career. Poor guy, he's gotten so many injuries. But Looks like it's going to be Kenneth Walker now, with DJ Dallas and Travis Homer probably out there. Actually, Homer I don't think played. Yeah, he didn't play in week 5, but DJ Dallas did. So he'll probably be out there enough to be annoying for Kenneth Walker. But yeah, it's going to be the Kenneth Walker show. And then let's look at our guys, DK and Tyler Lockett. Both of them actually had pretty big weeks in week 5. Gino is just slinging it, right? So these guys almost cleared 400 air yards each in weeks 2 through 4. They're taking a 40% air yard share, a point, oh man, a point 0.7 for each of these guys' weighted opportunity rating. That's insane. That's huge stuff. And then again, we see 135 yard air yards for Lockett, 89 for Metcalf. Um, just huge stuff. A touchdown for each from Lockett at 2 of them. Yeah, man, really, really good stuff there. Let's see what Geno doubles are looking like. I feel like that's probably going to be pretty popular this week, but let's see how things are projected here. So, Geno Smith 5,700. The DraftKings just doesn't want to believe Geno's good, even though I think I saw this week that PFF has him rated as like one of the best QBs, I think, and maybe even the top QB for through the first 5 weeks. So 5,700 is obviously great for Geno, especially against this Arizona defense, which isn't that good. Um, let's see. Lockett's price didn't move. I don't know how that happens. He's still 5,600. So he's going to be incredibly popular. DK Metcalf looks like he bumped up a little bit to 6,800, but he's still projecting really well. And then Kenneth Walker, of course, at 5,400, he projects great. So, yeah, that's an interesting angle to think about here. So we've got 3 players that are projecting for more than their quarterback. And so generally that kind of leans you to you should probably play the quarterback, and figure out, kind of a way to go here. And I think I don't really hate kind of doing a game block here and doing Smith plus Walker plus one of the receivers, and probably just taking our pick. Like I'd probably just go Metcalf since Lockett's just going to be about double the ownership. And then on the Arizona side, I mean, you could bring it back with Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore looks good. Zach Ertz looks good. Of course, Benjamin looks good. I mean, man, this game's going to be popular. Both pretty bad defenses. Should be kind of in for a shootout. Definitely one of the games that I'm going to be diving into to try to figure out a good approach here. One of the things that I like thinking about. So, if you do a Geno Smith double and you just do Lockett and Metcalf, that means probably nobody's bringing that back with Marquise Brown, right? So Metcalf 6,800. If you just swap that out and you put in Marquise Brown instead, and then you grab maybe Will Disley, or you do the Kenneth Walker play or something like that. That's kind of an interesting angle. Just trying to think through like what a majority of the field will play if they play a Geno double, and probably a lot of them won't be figuring out how to fit in Marquise Brown. So I would assume that Rondale Moore and Zach Ertz are the more popular bringbacks for Geno doubles. And so I would be trying to figure out a way to get Marquise Brown to fit. On the Arizona side, like I think Kyler Murray plus Marquise Brown plus Benjamin is a really cool way to approach it. And those guys again are Murray, Brown, and Benjamin are actually trending the lower side for ownership because everybody's trying to bring back Moore and Ertz with Geno doubles. So yeah, I mean that's looking like, just off the top of my head of a quick glance here, that's looking like a really fun little way to do it. And then you could just bring back Lockett or DK or something, with Kyler there. That could be wheels up. Okay, cool. I like this game a lot. Definitely going to be worth diving in. Where we at here? Where we at here? What's up with the chat? We're gonna grab our last shot here before we go on to game 11. Mm. Whisper says, "Thought you were planning on having a guest tonight." Yes, I was. But that was on me. I did. I committed the guest to coming on the show before I reached out to the guest. So hopefully we can get him on next week. And have a little bit more fun talking to somebody than just me rambling through a spreadsheet for an hour and a half here. We the People says this is his favorite game stack, so I'm interested. We the People, how are you thinking about approaching it though? Right, so we've got a lot of ownership condensing on this game. What's your favorite approach for this game? Yeah, and there we go. Weisberg says, yeah, PFF's number one rated quarterback is Geno Smith. Who would have thought? Okay, here we go. Last game of the week where all the eyes are going to be on. I don't really know if we need to spend too much time diving through the spreadsheets here on these guys. Devin Singletary is going to be the man in close games. He's not going to be the man in blowouts. So we didn't really see a big Devin Singletary game in week 5 because they were blowing it out. Like this is just something we got to think about, right? Just remember if it's going to be a close game, it's going to be Singletary. If it's going to be a blowout, it's going to be spread out. So against the Steelers, it was spread out. Gabe Davis obviously went off huge. Stephon Diggs still had a great game. And then Khalil Shakur had a great game. Really condensed tree here for Buffalo. And I think I had a little bit of a leak in my game. Once I saw that the Buffalo offense was going to be so condensed this week, no Dawson Knox, no Jameson Crowder, no Isaiah McKenzie, really should have tried to pivot a little bit harder into Buffalo um, because we don't get a lot of those opportunities to load up on Josh Allen in a condensed production environment. But obviously, those that did got paid off pretty well. Quentin Morris actually played pretty well for Dawson Knox there. But yeah, then I mean, I don't know, Kansas City, like we just saw them play Monday night. Travis Kelsey, 4 touchdowns. Marquez Valdes-Scantling played better than Juju. Clyde Edwards-Helaire didn't play that much. Jerick McKinnon played a lot more, and a little bit of an actual comeback effort there against the Raiders. So yeah, I'm not. I'd rather spend some time on the DraftKings side here, looking through this game because this is a this is an interesting game. It's coming up. It's not really projecting like a lot of ownership on first like the first runs here, right? So Josh Allen, this stuff is really interesting to talk through, right? So Josh Allen is projecting to be the highest owned quarterback, 25% right now. Or one of the highest owned. I don't have the full list here, but definitely one of the highest owned. And then we got Steph Diggs at 8,400, who's projected for about 20% of the ownership. And then nobody else on Buffalo is projecting for over 2%. So that's just not going to happen, right? That's definitely not going to happen. But it's important to remember like these first runs are typically just based on projections only, and then as the ownership gets updated throughout the week, it's taken a little bit more of the context of the slate into effect. But yeah, I mean, based on projections alone, loading up on Buffalo here seems great. Devin Singletary 5,900 is interesting. I really like Singletary this week, even though he's not projecting incredibly well, just because the Chiefs are giving up a lot of passes to running backs, and we know for a fact that um, the Bills are going to load up on Singletary when they're in close games, which we expect this game to be a close game. Gabe Davis is projecting well. Isaiah McKenzie is projecting decent if he plays. And then the sites are thinking Dawson Knox is out, so Quentin Morris is projecting really well at 2,800, and he actually was pretty close to scoring a touchdown there in week 5. So I wouldn't really get too spun up on these ownership numbers yet for the Bills. There definitely is going to be quite a bit of ownership that flows this way, especially after the big Gabe Davis week, especially after Quentin Morris, a value that's shown up at the tight end. So some more is going to go there, and then I mean, on the Chiefs side, it's projecting as like no ownership. Mahomes isn't projecting as good as Allen. Allen is a clear better play than Mahomes right now. Um, and so Mahomes is hardly going to be owned at all. Travis Kelsey's up to almost 8,000, 7,800, and he projects decently. But then Juju Smith-Schuster 5,200, Marquez Valdes-Scantling 4,500. So they look pretty good there. And then the running backs don't look too great there for KC. So really interesting game environment to think about. I um, there's going to be the arguments all week that you will hear probably on the podcast and the takes about like, oh well, this game could be could be more defensive battle. Both these teams are really good in the AFC and trying to get positioning for the 1 seed or whatever. But I mean, if this game comes in where it's projecting right now for ownership, it just seems like it's going to be a 42-35 shootout, and the offenses are going to get cranking, and everybody's going to be like, wait, why did we not play Buffalo and Kansas City? So, um, definitely a game to keep our eye on. I wouldn't galaxy brain too much out of it. If the projections are coming in low, then I mean that seems like a really good game to attack, especially when a lot of people are going to see it as the big game of the week and try to figure out a way to get away from it. So, anyways, those are my kind of first takes there on all the games. Thanks for sticking with me, folks. Another hour and a half of your Thursday nights that you'll never get back. But hopefully, you guys like it. I like cruising through the sheets. I like looking at the players. I like getting a kind of a first look for me, diving into the slate and trying to figure out where our heads are going to be at for the weekend ahead. So yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll see you again next Thursday. Maybe we'll have the guest on, have a special featured guest on, and be able to pick up the pace a little bit and not just me rambling talking to spreadsheets. But thanks everybody for tuning in. Cheers, guys. Talk to you later.